Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the session today on an important topic, the fraud landscape, staying safe as scams soar. Our organization, the National Indian Council on Aging, or NICOA, is a nonprofit established over 40 years ago that's dedicated to improving health, social services, and economic well-being for American Indian and Alaska Native elders. We want to thank our distinguished presenters, Kathy Stokes and Amy Nofziger, who serve as co-leads of the AARP Fraud Watch Network. We thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us today. We also want to thank our wonderful planning team from the New Mexico Money Smart Network, Gina Vincent, Don Escobel, and Jeff Hall, and from AARP, Ron Morey and Michelle Sourjohn. We are recording this session and we'll post the recording in our NICOA website within several days. You can find it at the top of our homepage by clicking Newsroom and then Videos. We encourage your questions, so please type them into the question and answer box, and we'll save time at the end of the session to discuss them. And now I'd like to introduce Larry Curley, our Executive Director, and also thank him for his support for all these sorts of endeavors. Larry has also got another webinar coming, and so he won't be able to be here for the whole session. But thank you very much, Larry, for joining.
Thank you. And to all of you out there in cyber world, thank you for joining us and listening in on this very important topic. My role here is basically to say welcome, thank you very much, and to offer a prayer that we usually do in Indian country. So I'll do that in my own language, and the prayer will be short, which is unusual for an Indian person doing a prayer because it's really quite lengthy, but I will make it short in consideration of the time. Kodon hil khanagi chededi idon hidden but bebe cat bedan di katon hi masani hi chedan lini konevich and david now at this shigo called ya yat eho e na de kato de a couldn't clo na de kato de snow a corner so there's an 8 na the slate or the not oshkan the snare call hajona hustling And that's the end of my prayer, basically saying thank you very much. And I will now turn the meeting over to Kathy Stokes and Amy Nofziger. All yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. And thank you, Becky, for inviting us to join today. I am just going to pick up our slides here and get us going. Oops. Here we go. And get you going. Okay, Amy, are my slides visible?
I can see them, they look great.
Okay. So let me just first introduce ourselves. I'm Kathy Stokes, I'm the Director of Fraud Prevention Programs with AARP, and my colleague here, Amy Nofziger, is the Director of Fraud Victim Support, and together we run the AARP Fraud Watch Network. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit about the Fraud Watch Network. We're going to cover some trending scams. We're going to focus in on what we consider a new form of currency in scams, which is gift cards. And then importantly, something that's really close to Amy's and my heart, we're going to be talking about how we need to change the narrative about how we talk about financial fraud victims. We're also going to give you some resources at the end. And throughout, Amy's going to share some real stories as heard on the Fraud Watch Network helpline that she manages. So a little bit about the Fraud Watch Network. I want you to write this down, aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. It's your gateway to a whole range of great information. But basically, we are here to empower consumers to spot and avoid scams and provide support to those who do experience fraud or the people that they love that have experienced it. And we're also in the advocacy space to advocate for change that will hopefully, turn around to try to stop this scourge of scams. This is intentionally a busy slide. I just wanted to give you a sense of everything that you'll get when you go over to the AARP Fraud Watch Network page online. The only thing that's not online that I'm talking about here, well, two things. One, Amy's going to talk about, which is our helpline. And another, which I think is one of the most important things we do, is we have 53 state offices around the country, and they all engage volunteer fraud fighters, and they go out into community to spread the message of fraud prevention. Now, of course, we haven't been doing a lot of that, none of that in person since the pandemic, but we've been out there virtually, and we're looking forward to when we think we're going to be able to return in the early part of next year. But you'll see we have a lot of really great information. We have a podcast. You can sign up for alerts to stay ahead of the latest scams. So I'd encourage all of you to check that out. And now Amy's going to explain the helpline.
So one of the things that we realize when we go out and talk to community members, people like yourself, is that if they are approached with a fraud or a scam, they really want a trusted friend to talk to about it, right? And oftentimes they don't want to bring it up with their family because of the fear of being judged. So the Fraud Watch Network Helpline is a free resource for anybody of any age, and you do not have to be an AARP member to use it. There you'll get that trusted, wise friend. You'll get one of us. You'll get our fraud specialist who will sit with you and walk you through your experience. Perhaps you just got a suspicious phone call and you're not sure what to do. Call us. You know, perhaps you were online dating and someone asked for some gift cards and you mailed it to them and you realized you were a victim. Call us. Right? It's a judgment-free zone. We'll help you walk through it. We get about 450 to 500 phone calls a day. In 2020, we touched about 103,000 people. And I'll say when the people call us, we average about 22 minutes on the phone line. That is unheard of in most support centers, most call-in places. No, not blaming them, but no regulator, no government agency is ever going to be able to spend that much time on the phone. So just make sure you write that phone number down, put it on your refrigerator or by your phone, and call us if you ever have any questions.
And we'll repeat that number at the end, but right now it's 877-908-3360. And now Amy's going to cue us up to talk. Why isn't this working? Hang on. There, about trending scam.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great things about the helpline is that we sometimes get the first reports of scams. I remember when the Medicare DNA swab scam came out a couple of years ago, I got this phone call and it just happened to come to me. And I was like, this is weird. I've been doing this for 20 years. I have never heard this. Next thing we know, we turn it around and we, with the help of our community fraud fighters, uncovered one of the biggest Medicare fraud scams out there. So we're hearing from you. And right now, these are some of the top 5 scams that are trending on the helpline.
There I go. So let's first talk about imposter scams. What we mean by imposter scams is really anybody pretending to be somebody they're not and trying to get you to give them money in some form. They can be often government agencies like the Social Security Administration or the Internal Revenue Service telling you that there's a problem with your account or you owe back taxes and you need to pay immediately or you need to call back immediately to address the situation. Or it could be a business imposter. Commonly, that's like a tech support scam where they're pretending to be Microsoft, or even a utility company calling to pretend that there's a problem with your billing and they're about to cut your service off, which happens a lot as we get into the winter months. We've even seen many times when impersonators have used AARP's brand to try to get people into this state to give them money. And the things to know about with this is the government and businesses as a general rule are not going to call you out of the blue and talk to you about a specific problem. It just doesn't happen that way. But if you are concerned, don't engage with that person that called you or the number that they may have left you, but rather go to a trusted source to look up the phone number, not just a Google search. If you're looking for IRS, go to irs.gov if you're online, for example. And call and find out if they'd been trying to reach you. And I'm going to tell you in 99.99% of the cases, it was a scam. So it's importantly, if we deal with this, we just want to make sure that we don't give them any money or any form of personal sensitive information. That's just really important because once they get you there, it's easy just to sort of follow what they're telling you to do. And Amy, I think you have some good examples of imposter scams from the helpline.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of our most popular scams that's out there right now. And as Kathy said, it can be anyone pretending to be from the government, a legitimate business. I mean, heck, even your grandchild. But most recently, and we just wrote about this on AARP.org, we had a woman from St. Louis who was sitting at her computer and all of a sudden the sirens go off, right? And it said to call a number. And so it was the tech support kind of imposter scam with Dell and Microsoft. And she called them and they said there was a critical virus on her computer because she had been downloading inappropriate images, which of course she wasn't, but that was just to scare her. And ultimately they instructed her to visit 4 Lowe's home improvement stores in the St. Louis area and buy at each store $3,000 worth of Target gift cards. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but one of the things that she said to me is she said, I can't believe I did this. I have no idea what was happening. It was like I was in a trance. They kept her on the phone the whole time, even so much to say if they hung up and lost connection, it would be big trouble because they had a tracker following her, a helicopter following her, right? So this is very scary. It's just, she's in this emotional ether. So, anytime, just as Kathy said, the government will not call you out of the blue. The Social Security Administration does not need your Social Security number. Trust me, they have it. So hang up the phone.
So let's move on to identity theft and identity fraud. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, one day open up the mail and you get a letter saying, sorry to inform you, your data have been compromised in a data breach. I think it's happened to everybody. The important difference I want to talk about, though, is what identity theft is and what identity fraud is. So the identity theft is what I just talked about. Your data are exposed, they're out there, but they haven't been used yet. It's fraud when someone takes that identity and uses it illegally to buy a new car or get a mortgage or anything else that they can do, and it's in your name, unfortunately. It's the most popular thing that was reported, It's the most common thing that was reported to the Federal Trade Commission, who collects these data last year, just skyrocketed. So there are protections that we can all take, just assuming that our data are already out there for the most part. If you aren't planning on taking out a loan, buying a car or anything in the near future, you can freeze your credit, and that will stop someone who has taken your credentials from opening an account in your name. It's not fail-safe, but it's pretty darn close. And if you go to annualcreditreport.com, you can learn about credit freezes and how you have to do it with each of 3 agencies, but it's free. And if you need the credit, you can always lift the freeze and then put it back. Another thing is, we grew up learning badly how to use passwords for our online accounts. And it's almost impossible with as many accounts as you may have online, I know in my case, to create a unique and strong password for everything, but it's something we all need to do. If we use the same or similar passwords across our accounts, financial or not, and a scammer hacks them, they've got us on everywhere we've used that. So really the easiest way to manage all of this is to buy, it's really inexpensive, a password manager, and it can create really strong passwords for you and hold them in a vault, and you can pull them up and you're much safer that way. And the other thing is, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but you should be accessing all of your financial accounts online. You think, well, I'm not going to do banking online because that's risky. But the reality is, if you don't, then there's every possibility that a really good hacker is going to go and set up that online account in your name, and they can wipe out all of your accounts. If you do this, I would recommend an app versus the web. Although the web's okay, but there is extra encryption in apps. So if you have go to your bank and find out online if they have an app and download that onto your phone. If you do find yourself a victim of identity fraud, there's a really great resource online, again, run by the Federal Trade Commission, and that's www.identitytheft.gov. Anytime you're trying to reach the federal government here in the US, everything is .gov. If you get irs.com, that's a scam site. All right, moving on to sweepstakes. You may have gotten a call or a letter saying, hey, you've just won the Publishers Clearinghouse or some other lottery, and you get $1 million and a new Mercedes. And you get in contact with the person who you're supposed to get in touch with, and they get you really excited about it, and you're ready to get your money. And then they go, oh, wait, we forgot to tell you there's some upfront fees that you have to pay first. And this is one of these scams that typically is not one and done. The scammer keeps coming back to that person that they now have in that ethereal state and is asking for additional funds. So this sweepstakes scam can go on for a really long time and just wipe out the victim. It's really important to know that you can't win a lottery if you didn't enter it. And if you say that, they'll say, well, you know, you bought something and you automatically were entered. That's just not going to happen. And in the United States, you don't have to pay an upfront fee for anything that you win. Very important to know. Someone says you've won and now you have to pay something, it's a scam. Another really, really difficult area is online dating scams. And you know, you don't have to be on a dating app or a dating website looking for love or companionship. These online romance scams can happen anywhere online. We have so many examples of people who've met the online romance imposter playing words with friends or Scrabble or being on Facebook and getting a direct message from somebody. And typically this scammer will play it out by saying, getting you engaged and then suggesting you move off of that site or that app to another way to converse. He or she will profess that they love you deeply very early on. For some reason, you're never able to meet in person, which probably made it easier during the pandemic to make people believe that. And then eventually, and this could be days, weeks, months, you get an urgent need for money. And it's typically, you know, there's a situation here, can you send me a gift card? And then it escalates from there. Like with sweepstakes, the online romance scam is something that can go on and on and on. And I think, Amy, you've got a great example of how this plays out in real life.
Yeah, and I just want to say a couple of things about this. So if I could see everybody on this presentation, I imagine some of you maybe turned your head, looked at your phone during this part because you're like, I'm in a very happy and committed relationship. This will never happen to me. Well, it does. I have been a witness to many divorces because of one spouse or one partner or another meeting someone on social media and then falling in love with that person who is a scammer and then ultimately having a divorce. So anytime you're out there talking to strangers, just remember what our parents used to tell us about stranger danger, right? Don't give them any personal information. Don't give them any money, obviously. But another thing right now that we're seeing on, if you are out there online dating or talking to folks, one of the first questions in any kind of courtship relationship or friendship is, well, what do you do for a living? And right now, most of the criminals are saying that they're actually retired because they made a lot of money in cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. And then they say, well, would you like me to teach you about it? Would you like me to help you earn a lot of money? So we're actually finding that a lot of these Bitcoin scams and crypto scams are actually starting on romance and online dating sites. So that's definitely a trend. But these are heartbreaking. And don't think that these are isolated cases. We probably get about 10 to 15 victims a day on the helpline. Yesterday we had one. It went on for 5 years. And the final estimate loss that the son gave us from his father was $2.6 million.
So needless to say, this is a very, very dangerous area. And we all need to understand what's happening out there, whether we plan on being online dating or not. And then the other one we wanted to talk about is what Amy has coined the "Can you do me a favor" scam. This is where you get a brief but urgent message from somebody that you trust, or somebody that you believe to be a person in authority. They're unavailable to take a particular action, like go down and buy a gift card for something. And they need you to do the quick favor of running down to a store, buying some gift cards and sharing the numbers off the back, and that you'll get reimbursed. So an example could be a CEO reaching out to someone in an organization saying, "Hey, I'm in a board meeting right now, but I need you to pick up 40 $100 Amazon cards for me because I'm doing an employee appreciation event and I can't get there before then. Go ahead and expense them and thank you." Or it could be a faith leader someone pretending to be a faith leader saying, "Hey, I had to run into the city and didn't have time to buy a Target card for a family in need. Can you run down, put $500 worth on a Target card and I'll pay you back. Send a picture, thanks." These seem so real because we don't look and immediately question someone in a position of authority that it's real or not. You just act. So it's a particularly pernicious one.
Kathy, I just want to go on that really quick. So it was interesting because I'm always looking for good examples of frauds, like actual hard copy examples. And I, consider myself pretty up on all these prevention things, but I got this one just the other day, and I'm trying to pull it up on my phone, but I saved it and screenshotted it. But it's not working right now. But funny enough, I did not know this person, but for some reason, my email address was in her address book. And I think I figured out that it came from a volunteer opportunity that we had all done. And so my email was just in her address book together. But the subject line was, "How you doing?" Now, if I had actually known this person, right, I would have been like, "Great, how are you?" But again, because I'm looking for a story always, I wrote back and I said, "I'm great. What can I do for you?" And she said that she was stuck on a trip and she needed me to buy American Express gift cards for her nephew because he completed some online course. And I wrote back and I just said, "Thanks, I'll run up to the North Pole and ask Santa to put it on his list." Now, I don't recommend any of you guys doing that. We don't want to play with these scammers. I always like to say I'm a trained professional. Don't do this at home. But obviously then this person knew, but I'm just saying it can happen to anyone. Yeah, and I see Rebecca coming in on the chat saying that this happened with her organization. It's happened everywhere. So always just make sure to verify.
Really good points, Amy. And I think you're going to take us through the next several, talking about the holiday scams that we can expect to see as we go into the holiday seasons.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I've done quite a few interviews already on these because with everything we're hearing in the news right now, with pipelines and shipping slowdown and all the merchandise and everything that's going on right now, a lot of people are wondering how that's going to affect the holiday season. Certainly they don't want to hear me say, "Why don't you just make a present or give a hug?" That won't have any problems. But we're already seeing some of these scams coming down. I just had some folks the other day call me. And what happens is, let's say you're looking for the hot item. You're looking for like the new Air Jordans or the Xbox 5000, whatever it is. And all the traditional sites like Target and Walmart, they're all sold out. So we as consumers try to do some online searching. So we go into Google or we go into Bing, whatever website is, and we type in Xbox 5. Well, what happens is criminals will place fake websites and they'll manipulate their online bidding. All that means is they'll get their ad up at the top. So we as consumers think, well, it's at the top, must be legitimate. Click on there. They have the product, of course, in stock. If it's a shoe, they have your size. They're even offering free shipping, right? The only thing is they want you to pay by PayPal. Usually they want you to choose the friends and family option on PayPal, which negates any of their customer service protections. They'll ask you to pay by a peer-to-peer app. We just had this happen, as I was saying, with a family who was trying to jump ahead of the rush of holiday shopping to buy an Xbox for their child. They paid by Zelle, which is one of those peer-to-peer apps. And obviously they never got the product and they're out the money because Zelle is virtually untraceable. I kind kind of already did the slide. So yeah, the one thing with these hot ticket items is, set your shopping list early. Know what the price should be. So if you're looking for some earphones and they normally retail for $100 and you see them advertised on social media for $25, huge red flag. Pay attention to those bargain basement prices. We all want a good deal and we all want to save money, but those slash prices are a big red flag. Other things, I talk about social media. We're finding out that a lot of those ads that are placed on social media like Facebook, Instagram, even I hear TikTok, not my generation, but it's definitely the younger generation. There's a lot of fake ads that are being placed on there. We as consumers feel like those ads have been vetted. They haven't. So my best piece of advice is if you want to do business with a new retailer to you, take the name of the company, put it into a Google or Bing search engine, whatever you prefer. And then after it, write the words scam, review, complaint. I've done this recently with a couple of the companies that have been complained about on the helpline. And it is amazing how angry customers place their, their comments online. So use other people's experiences. Bogus apps is another thing. Anytime you're in the app store, just make sure, it's fine, Kathy, you can go ahead. Just make sure you do your due diligence and do your research. Charity scams, obviously at the end of the year, sometimes there's tax benefits. Sometimes we're all in that, giving spirit. We want to give and we want you to give. We just want you to give wisely. Check the charity. You can go to give.org. You can go to Charity Navigator, any of those places to check the validity of this organization that is asking you for money. If they put pressure on you, walk away. Any legitimate charity will never pressure you for money. Your money will be good on Tuesday to them, just as good as it is on Friday. And if anyone comes to your door wanting you to give over the door, my refusal script, I do not do business over my door or at my door. Please give me some information or your website so I can do research to find out if I want to give money to you. If they're a good charity, they'll respect you and they'll give you that information and they'll walk away. Other things, if you get a thank you note for a donation that you don't recall making, check it out. Definitely. We've had a lot of complaints recently where you give a one-time donation and they send you up for an auto donate. Make sure you call the organization and tell them that was one time and it wasn't a recurring donation, because otherwise they're going to keep hitting your credit card every month. Drain gift cards. This is an interesting one because oftentimes it can be two things. So those gift cards at the store, the big carousels, right? So what scammers can do is they can take the gift cards off of the carousel, take pictures off of the back and get the numbers, and then take the PIN number. So once you load money on that card, they have this computer program, like these algorithms set up way more than my brain can handle on how they do it, but they can certainly do it. And they get a ding to say that there's been money loaded on that gift card, and then they can instantly drain it. Or sometimes it's just human error. When you take that gift card up to the point of sale and they scan it, they don't hit the scanner. This actually happened to me. My mother-in-law sent me a gift card and I went to the store and it was empty. And they were able to tell me that money was never loaded on there. So it wasn't like money was loaded on and then it was taken off. So it was just a human error. Or maybe it was just a point from my mother-in-law that she doesn't love me as much as I thought she did. But so make sure you always get that receipt when you buy gift cards. And I think it's even better to go directly to the store that you want to buy the gift card from, or buy it offline, like online. Delivery scams. Again, I mean, how many times does an Amazon or UPS truck come down my street? I mean, my dogs know that brown truck because they give them treats. But right, they leave them on our front porch. I mean, you can drive around your neighborhoods everywhere and see packages just sitting there. They could be TVs, cookies, whatever it is. People will follow these trucks. Additionally, then there's just your scams where you'll get a text message saying, oh, hey, Kathy, we tried to deliver you this product. You weren't home. Click on this link and give us your information and we'll make sure to get it to you. Now, sometimes people are like, well, I'm ordering so much stuff. I don't know if it is or not. I say, keep track of where you order it from, keep track of who's delivering it. Most of the time it won't come in via text. It'll come in via your email that you put in when you logged into the online shopping thing. And if you have any questions whatsoever, do what Kathy said earlier. Find the legitimate phone number of the company you want to call and reach, and then call them directly, right? Don't respond to that text, because once you click on that, it could download malware or it could ask you for personal information.
I had one of these recently where it was a text and it was supposed to be from FedEx. And the sender wrote my name. Hey, Kathy, I'm in your neighborhood, but I'm having a hard time finding your house. Can you get in touch? I'm thinking, I have never had anyone from FedEx call me by my first name or, have problems finding my house. So I knew it was a scam, but, if you're not aware of this all the time, it's really easy to sort of miss it. I want to move on to talking about gift cards in a different way than Amy was talking about. They're being used by scammers to get your money, and we're going to explain that. So what happens is the target of a scam is convinced that there's a problem. Social Security account has been compromised, IRS saying you owe back taxes, utilities saying you haven't paid your bill and you're going to get cut off. But you can rectify all of this. The best way to do it is to pay a fee, and that will require you to go to a specific store, go and get a specific gift card off the rack. And we're talking eBay, Google Play, iTunes, really anything. Load a specific amount of money on one or more cards, and then share the PIN number off the back. So the scammer stays online with you or on your phone with you in your purse or in your pocket to make sure that you're doing what they're telling you to do. So the typical scenario is the impersonator scam, like the government, Imposter, tech company, Publishers Clearinghouse. They push that target into a heightened emotional state, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but that could be based on fear or love or excitement even. And then the scammer convinces the quickest option is to purchase the gift card, read the numbers off the back, or take a picture and share. And you might be thinking, well, why do scammers want gift cards? What can they do with them? Well, first of all, they're virtually untraceable the way they're bought and sold in the United States. Scammers have the ability to readily convert those cards into cash for Bitcoin, or even use the balance at the retailer that they had you buy it from. And it gives the ability of these criminals to move large amounts of money in small parcels around. If you're going to try to get somebody to send you $10,000 through a bank, that's going to raise a red flag in the financial institution. So this way, they stay undercover. So our bottom line is anytime you're directed to pay with a gift card, which they might call an electronic voucher or some other term, it is a scam, full stop. If it happens, contact the issuing company right away, keep that card in receipt, tell the store where you bought it and report it, call the fraud helpline. Unfortunately, there's very little chance that if you lose money in this way, you'll get your money back, because those dollars are taken off so quickly. But there have been occurrences where somebody immediately realized it, went back or talked to the issuer, and they were able to get a little bit of that money back. But unfortunately, it's virtually untraceable. And at the beginning of the year, we wanted to take a look at what people knew about this scam and how aware they were of it. And we found that 25% of us either don't know or aren't sure if it's a scam when you're directed to buy a gift card to pay an obligation. And 1 in 10 say they have bought a card to pay some obligation, in which case 1 in 10 have experienced a scam and lost money to it. Sometimes you don't even know it, because you'll think, okay, problem solved, and move on. So we constructed a 3-year gift card campaign to try to get the word out that anytime someone asks you to pay for something with a gift card, it's a scam. We're doing a lot of educational outreach. We're doing some research into best practices in the stores, eventually doing some work with retailers to try to intervene at the point of sale. But the information on that is at aarp.org/gift cards. Now comes the time where Amy and I start talking about the thing that I think both of us are most passionate about. And it's about talking about how we talk about fraud victims. And you see these words floating on the screen: you was duped, or they were suckers, or you'd have to be an idiot. This is common language, whether we mean harm or not. It's common language that we use with financial crimes. But first, I just want to get back to that heightened emotional state. Bad scams happen to good people, and anybody can be a target and a victim because criminals are really good at what they do. They get that target into that state of anxiety or fear or need or excitement, and they call that getting them under the ether. And once you're in that space in your brain, it's really hard to get to your logical thinking process. So once they've gotten you there, it's really hard for you to get out. It's not the victim's fault. These scammers are really good at what they do. And we've had people call the helpline that are PhDs and retired heads of federal agencies. It happens, and it can happen to everyone. And here's our social narrative. When we talk about scam victims, we say, yeah, she was duped, or he fell for it, he got taken, they were scammed. Those words are putting the blame on the victim for either missing something or not knowing something. But then when we look at, for example, violent crime victims, we put the focus on the crime and the criminal, criminal held her at gunpoint, viciously assaulted her, these kind of places, these kind of words, where just automatically we're focusing blame on the crime and on the criminal. And Amy, why don't you run us through some of these things that you've heard yourself?
So one of the things I like to do in my free time, because it's all about fraud all the time, is when I go on and read stories about fraud cases in the media, I go to the comments section, and it opens you up to just the nastiness of the internet, but it also opens you up to the perception that people have of the fraud victims. And these are actual quotes. And I know you guys can just, read them and see them. But these are actual quotes about people. And so one of the things I like to say when families call me is, however you talk to your loved one, you always want to lead the conversation with kindness and empathy, never blame or shame. And that really goes into any conversation we have with anybody, but especially someone who is coming to you to share their victimization with you. I've had families tell me, we don't understand, how could he do this? He was smart. Well, he still is smart, right? We were all sitting around in the living room and we were just yelling at him and he wouldn't say anything. And I'm like, well, would you say something if your children and your family and your friends were all yelling at you for something that happened to you? How would it make you feel if something that was as horrible as this was going to define the rest of your life? Because that's what you're kind of making it happen right now. So the shaming weighs in significantly. A lot of our victims feel shame. They feel embarrassed. We don't need to pile on them, right? As Kathy was saying, this ether, it is actually, there's chemical changes in your brain and your adrenaline takes over. It's almost like you are incapacitated to make a cognitive choice at this point. So that's the one thing that we do on the helpline, is we really help people understand how to move on from these. And the human toll is significant, right? The one that I not like to talk about, but is that people are dying by suicide because of this. I'm actually working on a pretty significant case right now where a woman met a man on social media, thought they were getting married and started sharing their resources. And ultimately, he took $900,000 from her. She died by suicide and asked her ex-husband, because they were still friends, to kind of avenge her death and help make her story known to people. This should not happen. This should not happen.
So why don't we all commit to changing the narrative? Let's whether we mean harm or not, and most of us don't mean harm. We just say it because it's the language that we've always used. We kind of grew up in this space of blaming the victim. Why don't we say, falling victim isn't your fault. It's the fault of the criminal who perpetrated the crime. Really focus on that and try to get that victim out of blaming herself, because when we blame, it just shoves that blame onto them, and it's really hard for them, to get beyond it. And Amy and I think that there are many impacts that changing the narrative can have. And there have been successful narrative changes in the past, and we've studied them and we're learning from them. But we think it matters from the individual level all the way up to public policy. So first of all, victims deserve our empathy and respect. They do not deserve our scorn. Families, if they understand that it's the criminal's fault, aren't going to blame the person in their family that has fallen victim, and it'll protect the relationship. We believe that police may take more complaints. Right now, too many police officers believe that scams and fraud are a civil matter and you just need to move on. That's not the case. These are crimes, and we are going to be working to get that in front of police and also prosecutors. They might respect the impact of these scams and take on more cases. Quite often they think, it's a dog case, a jury won't be interested. We have proof that they're wrong about that, and we're going to be talking with prosecutors about that as well. And maybe policymakers will do more on the legislative or regulatory front to really address this really growing problem. And I heard a member of Congress one time, and it was many years ago, when they were talking, it was a state member, talking about creating a victims compensation fund for people who fall victim to these types of scam through coercion. And he's like, well, why would we compensate them? It was their fault. So this is what we get from some of our members of Congress. And then billions of dollars might stay in our economy. We see numbers from $3 billion a year to $29 billion a year to $56 billion a year, all leaving our economy. So let's flip the narrative. And Amy, why don't you run us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you remember those old fashion things in the magazines? It's like, bell bottoms are out, straight legs are in. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make this, more accessible to people. So what is out is judging the victims. I can't tell you how many times I open up the newspaper and we're talking high profile papers. And it's like, don't be swindled by these scams. Well, what does that say? Swindled, right? It puts the blame on the victim. Now, here's the thing about that. We all have responsibility to keep ourselves safe. That's why Kathy's whole job is the prevention side, right? We're going to give you all the tools, but ultimately, this might still happen. Same thing. You can lock your house, have an alarm, and have a dog, and you can still be broken into, right? But it's the criminal's fault, not yours. And what is in empathy? What is so wrong with saying to someone, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You know what? Together we'll figure out a way forward. Not how much did you give? How much did they take from you? Right. In understanding, I think that coercion and that brain manipulation that these scammers do, the money's gone, right? The money is gone. So let's help the victims move forward.
So we tossed a lot at you. I think we can make this PowerPoint available to Becky and get it out to you if you're interested. But one of the important things we want to leave you with is, if you learned something new today about the scam landscape, tell others. We really believe that the more we're aware of these specific types of scams, the more likely we are to not engage to begin with, because once you engage, then the trouble really starts. And we always like to say, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. So again, here are the resources that we talked about before: the Fraud Watch Network at aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network, the Fraud Watch Helpline, 877-908-3360. and the emotional support for victims program we're running right now. You can learn more about that at aarp.org/fraud support. And I'm going to figure out how to stop sharing, and we're going to open it up to questions if we have any out there.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat. That would be great. I'd love to hear some experiences. I saw earlier that Rebecca was saying that the Can You Do Me a Favor scam target anyone in Nicoa. And you're exactly right? They just infiltrate people's address books. And, we're all so busy during the day, and these emails just pop. So if I got an email from Kathy, of course, I'm going to go and open it up and see what it says. And if she's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a bind, can you help me? Well, of course I can help you. You're my trusted colleague, right? So that's definitely one that's going on.
I had actually heard a couple of weeks ago too that Indian country was experiencing scams, fraud, where the criminals were setting up websites that made it look like you were signing up for the program where you could get financial support through the federal law regarding economic stimulus, and they were getting you to sign in and sign up, give your information, including your social security number, and you're thinking, well, this is what I do. And then they were stealing that money and stealing identities. So something to be watchful for. Can you talk about how you were working with authorities to help prevent scams? Absolutely. We have a relationship right now with a dozen plus federal agencies, and they are engaged with us to do education and to get the word out. They share information with us. We share information with them. Well, we try to help them, because one of the important things is reporting, right? It's severely underreported. And if we have more reports, we have more of a chance that the investigators that are on these cases will be able to put the dots together and find the perpetrator. So we do a lot of in-community education. And Amy, you work a lot with federal agencies as well. They help train the helpline, right?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do is we do upload all of our data into the Federal Trade Commission Consumer Sentinel. That is one of the largest repositories for data on fraud in this country. And I think AARP might be the #1 contributor of complaints with people over 50, even though we take complaints from everybody. And then we also work pretty significantly with our partners at the Department of Justice and the FBI with their ic3.gov website. That is where the FBI procures a lot of their cases. So their retired victim advocate for the FBI works a lot with our fraud specialists on the helpline, and almost coaches our folks to coach the victims. And we do talk about that a lot as a benefit with the helpline. Kathy was saying earlier that a lot of law enforcement agencies will look at these cases as civil. I recently worked with a younger woman who was a pretty high up executive at a large Fortune 500 company. And she was just going through some tough times. And just on vacation once, she walked into a psychic. And a couple of months later, the psychic took $70,000 from our victim with threats of her mother being sick, like, oh, I need more money because your mom's going to die if I don't get these crystals, and this and this and this and this. And there are laws on the books for a lot of these kind of, organizations, these psychic organizations that help protect people. But she walked into the police department and they said, no, it's civil. We're done. And she called me and I wrote up a script for her. And I said, nope, you call them back and you say this. She got a police report and a case number, right? And oftentimes when we talk about law enforcement agencies on filing these reports, I tell the victims, you're not filing the report because you're going to get your money back. You're not going to get your money back. You can hope, and then if it does come back, yay, but let's set our expectations low, right? You're filing this report because you were a victim. And that's what you do when someone stole money from you, right? You put it on paper. There is this level of this psychological boost that people get by standing up and saying, I'm not going to take this. So I set people's expectations when working with law enforcement on these kinds of scams. I see Francis wrote in, an older member got a call that Amazon was verifying $1,400 purchase and they needed her credit card. This is this is probably one of the most popular imposter scams right now, Francis, the Amazon imposter scam. And people will say to me, well, I just had ordered from Amazon and then I got this notice. How did they know that? Well, I say back, who hasn't ordered from Amazon in the last 18 months? The scammers are just throwing a wide net, and they're catching a lot of these people because we're all using these home delivery services. But Amazon, they love you as a customer, but not that much. They're not going to reach out to you on an individual basis and talk about your account this way. They're going to send anything to your login information on the Amazon platform, right? It's all about getting to the platform. So if you ever get a call from Amazon, a text or an email saying there's a problem with your account, someone used it fraudulently, whatever, you go directly to your Amazon account and verify it there.
That's right. And we see from Judy something that I completely agree with. Why don't stores lock up these gift cards? We think that there's a lot more that the retail industry, that card issuers could and should be doing. We're looking at what we know to be interventions right now to see if they even work. You know, you may go to a store and see at least that there's like something on the top of the gift card rack that says, warning, if you're buying this to pay a bill or an obligation, it is a scam. Or if you flip over the card, it might say that. I think once though you're in that space, you're not going to be looking for that kind of information. But maybe when you get up to the point of sale, if the cashier is trained on what to look for, she or he can intervene with some form of language that we're trying to find, right? That gets you out of that, that ether that they've put you in. And we do know that has worked in some cases anecdotally. But yeah, we're with you on that, Judy.
Yeah, and let me take it one step further, and I might be, I might get pushback on this, but honestly, why do I need to go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot or a Target and be able to buy an Olive Garden gift card there, right? Like I get convenience, but really, I mean, if I want an Olive Garden gift card, I'll go to Olive Garden. You know, I find it really interesting how we have made these so accessible. Think about 10 years ago, they weren't there. And so people will say to me, well, how are people buying these? Don't they know what they're used for? No, because we didn't have these gift cards as accessible as they are. I remember getting paper gift certificates, right? And it had like the expiration date on the bottom. I do, like the woman that I talked about in St. Louis, she bought $12,000 worth of Target gift cards from a Lowe's improvement store and never bought a tool on any of that. I don't think we need them there. And if I can't buy spray paint without, you know, a kid younger than me opening up the case, I shouldn't be able to buy one of these financial instruments that is making our economy lose billions of dollars. There's my soapbox.
Well said, Amy. Gary Williams is asking, can you explain the difference between the use of credit cards versus debit cards? And it's an important distinction, so I'm glad you brought it up. They technically have the same, mostly the same consumer protections. However, very important difference. When you purchase something on a credit card, the credit card company or the bank that issued it is on the hook for losses by and large. And so they've created a really sophisticated way to identify fraudulent acts on cards, which is why if someone gets a hold of your card somehow, you will probably immediately get a notification from the bank saying, did you just make this purchase? And if you didn't, they shut it down, they send you a new card and you move on. If it wasn't caught, eventually, like if you get your, you see it in your statement that there was something illegitimate, you're on the hook possibly for like $50 or something, but most banks, most credit card issuers don't even charge you that. Now with a debit card, generally the same, a little bit higher risk if you don't catch it early, but here's the problem. That debit card is attached to your banking account. And if you're using that banking account to pay your rent, to pay your mortgage, to put food on your table, and that money disappears, you have to wait for the bank to investigate whether or not that was legitimate or not. And it could take days, weeks, it could take months. I don't know if it could take months, but let's say it could take months. And while that's happening, you're out that money. Sure, you may get it back, but you didn't have it when you needed it. So always use a credit card for any purchase. Be wary of peer-to-peer apps. Never use gift cards to pay for something. Wire transfers are a little safer now or aren't used as much by scammers these days, but that's all something that's a red flag too.
Yeah, and I want to get to Gina's comment, but really quick, one additional thing that Kathy was saying, a trend that we're seeing. So Zelle and Venmo and Cash App, but mostly Zelle, it's Zelle. It's one of those peer-to-peer apps. And a lot of your banks will advertise it. You probably even use it as a way to send money to friends and family or your kid or what babysitter, whatever it is. But because those are not, they're not attached to your bank accounts like your debit card or whatever. So if someone takes money out of your account fraudulently via Zelle, the bank won't do anything, even though it's associated with your bank. It's the craziest thing. So what we're finding, especially with tech support scams, if the tech scammer is getting into your bank account and withdrawing money, they're not withdrawing it in the normal EFT way. They're withdrawing it as Zelle. And so people will look at their account and they'll be like, what's a Zelle withdrawal? And that's what the criminal did, because they know it's very, very difficult to retrace it and for that to get retracted by the bank. So I always use my credit card. I have a debit card. I don't even know where it is, though. I'm sure it's somewhere safe. Gina, fraudulent websites offering jobs at high paying prices. This is a really popular one right now that people are getting back into the workforce and going back to jobs and stuff. Couple of things. Your job, eventually they're going to need your social security number to track your earnings, but not at the first interview. Legitimate companies will not be doing interviews via WhatsApp. And they don't need your bank account information right away. We're seeing them on Indeed. We're seeing them coming through LinkedIn. We're even seeing them on legitimate websites. They're taking even like our job ads on AARP, cutting and pasting them, putting them on like Indeed, saying, oh, you're a perfect candidate. The person thinks they're applying for AARP. And then they steal their credentials and their identity theft, or their identity. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Gina.
Yeah, and this wouldn't be a fraud prevention discussion if we didn't just mention robocalls. Robocalls generally, there's legal robocalls, but what we're talking about are the illegal ones that have just been hammering us for years and getting worse. And there's new legislation and there's new regulation that's supposed to sort of, make this go away, and it's not near doing that yet. So our advice to you is only pick up the phone when you absolutely know who is calling you. If you're not sure or you don't know, let your answering machine or your voicemail do the work for you. If the caller leaves a message, then you can just really think about that message and say, would Social Security call me and threaten me? No, I don't think so. But you can then call, find a number for the Social Security Administration and call for yourself.
Yeah, so I think we're got 2 minutes left. I just want to address Alex's comment really quick about the terrorism and the cybercrime. We know that our criminals, and I'm so affectionate with them, are criminals. We know our criminals are buying themselves some nice houses and some fancy cars, but trust me, if the amount of money some of these countries are getting from our victims was all going to them, their streets would be paved in gold. It's not. We know that this money is going to large international criminal organizations, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and terrorism, right? That's the horn that we want to talk about, because this is a we problem. It's not just a victim problem. We are all in this fight together, because the amount of money that is being lost, we could probably fund, kindergarten for every kid out there if we kept that money in our economy.
I think that's a really good place to thank everybody for joining us. We believe that, your exposure to this discussion helps to inoculate you from these scams, because you're aware and you know what the red flags are. And like I said before, pay it forward. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your parents, tell your grandparents. Be talking about this. It's that sort of grassroots organic discussion that's going to be way more useful and successful than anyone talking at you on a Zoom session. So share what you know and stay safe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Amy.
Take good care.
Bye-bye.